Greetings, fellow investigators, and welcome back to our video podcast, Into the Darkness, where my friends and I play the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. I'm your host, Tom Rayleigh. The campaign is Horror on the Orient Express. It's available from Chaosium. I am the keeper of the secrets, and this is episode 28. Our recap will be given by David Gassaway as his character, Dr. Roland Kurz. So without any further delay, let's continue our journey into the darkness. David?
Thank you, Tom. I think it's safe to say that we shall all miss the journey of the Dream Drain. We tasted there the finest wine that the universe has on offer. We made friends. We suffered loss as well. I shall hope to meet the chef de train, Henri, in Dream again, if not aboard the brave and strange Mimi. But we have relinquished our passage on that strange conveyance. As we approached the vasty deep of the Gulf of Nodens, we were again attacked. The damned machinations of Madame Bonneval and her implacable enemy, again endangering many others. We fended off the dread Shantaks, who are helped by the unthinkable night gaunts, and the ghoul Guillaume found redemption. In the pitch of battle, the alien Meronmir had the chance to avenge some of the wrongs done to and through him, attacking the Shantak-riding wizard, and the Heartstone ruby that caused so much terror fell at my feet. I sought to utilize the gem in some way, and in fact, blazing rays came out of it, burning the Bonneval and her foe into nothingness. As in a passage from a novel by Frank Baum, we said goodbye to the many strange creatures we met aboard the Dreamland Express. We tossed our burdens into the abyss and awoke in our Orient berths, arriving in Venice. The ruby heart came from the dreams with me. In Venice, we hired an Arisha's assistant, Giorgio. He informs us that the church we sought burnt down in the 16th century. We went to find a convent that may have contained records from the church and found that it is now, of all things, a naval technical school. That trail is cold, but it is early days. The news from Milan was mysterious. The authorities there are blaming unnamed unionists for the trouble at La Scala, and Faccia's lifeless body was found mangled atop the Duomo. One more surprise has welcomed us here. When we returned from lunch to the hotel, we found that the securely locked arm and the torso were not in their cases, or even in one of the rooms they were left in, but aligned together in a reclining position on Dobrowski's hotel bed.
And so you stand there looking down at these objects laying next to one another.
I would like very much to separate them more completely, but I also fear that they must remain in our possession.
I had the body locked in the trunk and it was still able to get out. I mean, I don't know what more we could do.
Yeah, what type of force is at work here, driving them together? How could we interrupt such a force?
Perhaps we should stay in different hotels. I fear that if two pieces can break locks and travel through bolted doors, then we have 4 or 5 pieces. It would be a independently acting automaton.
Yeah. And who knows what type of increased power it may have if it's allowed to unite. I fear that if we don't keep them separated, it might get out of hand.
Do spot hiddens as you guys are looking at these things.
87.
25 is a hard success.
Okay.
41, which is a regular.
So those of you who succeeded, you're looking at this, and I think as I ended last time, it doesn't all add up. What doesn't add up is the trunks containing your things do not seem to be damaged. The locks that were on them and or the chains, if you had chains on them, those things are destroyed. It's almost like they were pried open. Both pieces are in one room. So in the one case, it would have had to have been taken out of the box and carried into the other room. If these objects had blasted their way out of the trunks would have been destroyed. The trunks are not harmed.
So who knows what type of power these pieces have at their disposal?
Well, it looks more like somebody took them out of the trunk.
Which is far more perplexing in a way. Ascribing some malignant magical property to them is easier to face than somebody breaking into our rooms knowing we have these things and just putting them together and not taking them.
Also, if I remember correctly, Block's door was found locked and intact. Only his trunk lock was broken. So the trunk lock is broken. The trunk is opened. The torso leaves the trunk. Is the window closed? It's January. Of course the window is closed.
Is the window locked?
The windows aren't necessarily locked, but both of your windows open into the Galleria. Wait, no, you're in Venice now.
Yeah.
Yeah, outside your window, it's a good 3-story drop down to the ground below.
Well, to be fair, I picture the torso communicating mentally with the arm, burst their locks, and the torso floats up over to the window, out around the building in the other window. This is madness, but I am no longer reliant upon the sound logic of my youth.
It could have just been someone in the hotel that had a skeleton key that could have, opened the doors to explain why the door.
Pry the locks open with.
Yeah. Can I look at my trunk and where the lock was pried open? Is there like if you use a wrecking bar to crow, it's going to kind of like damage the thing you're bracing it against?
It on yours has a conventional lock, correct?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So on yours, it looks like something was jammed into the, here's the top of the lock, here's the bottom. Something was jammed in there and broke open the lock. In the case of Dorian, he had a padlock on there and a chain, and it almost seems like something took both ends of the chain and just tore the chain apart with the lock.
That's not an ordinary person. I mean, that they would have to have superhuman strength to.
Or you could put like 2 crowbars in it and somehow bend it.
Yeah.
Again, it's just so very odd because nothing else is missing, right?
Correct.
If I go check.
Yeah, this is specifically.
And if nothing else was rummaged through, so they opened very specifically these 2 items and somehow put them together for some unknown purpose, and then left without.
Well,
the doors were locked.
They must be onto this, though. They must be attracted to the unusual power from the simulacrum, because in all of the encounters we've had with these, it has had that unusual, peculiar effect on us, especially when we get really close to it. So someone must be aware of this. This isn't just
but why. But why not take them? If you know you're here and you're going through all the trouble to break into the rooms and open these up, why just put them together?
Do you think maybe they had something else in plan and we came back early and they had to leave?
Or
maybe we interrupted them.
Possibly, or it's just a display like, we can get into your room, we can get to your artifacts, and this is to show that
why go through all that trouble? These people went all the way to to England to try to kill Smythe over this. I don't know. Why wouldn't they just take them or lay an ambush here to kill us?
It must be a different party then. I completely agree with you, Dr. Neruda. If it was the original culprits from Dr. Smythe's encounter, then they would have just taken them. This might have been someone more maybe similar to ourselves who are following this for some reason. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yes, possibly a third party. But it sounds crazy, but it could just be the pieces, as we have discussed. It could just be them somehow doing this themselves.
All I know is I assume the doors have chains on them.
Yeah, little things.
Little chain
we'll
lock.
assume so. Yeah.
Yeah. So all I know is I'll be having my chain lock and the dresser pulled in front of the door. That way, if they can pick the lock that easy, they'll be able to get some rest. But,
are we able to separate the pieces? Have we tried that yet?
Yes, they're not attached to one another. They're just laying next to each other on the bed.
And they're not gravitating towards one another.
No.
They were just laid in the, like they were going to be a full body if you had them.
I'm gonna take out my handkerchief and kind of take the arm and pull it away. Does it feel like there's even a weak magnetism between
none whatsoever.
Oh. Okay. All right.
Well, Gunther, you keep hold of the torso. I keep hold of the arm. And we just maybe double lock, put something against the door, something against the window, see what happens.
Yeah.
As an experiment, might it be worth moving the pieces into different rooms?
Couldn't hurt.
Overnight.
If we believe that there is a human involved in this and they know that you two have carried pieces and they come back for something, they did not take the ruby heart out of my sock drawer in my room. Sits there in a handkerchief.
True.
Is the ruby heart to scale with the body's torso and arm? And also is the torso and the arm to scale with one another?
The torso and the arm are to scale with one another. And
the ruby heart is a Valentine's heart, not like an anatomical heart. So
right. You find the strangeness of the simulacrum now that you're seeing it there laid out, that it seems to once again have this strange property that it looks familiar, and at the same time it is in perfect proportion to you as well. I mean, it looks like your arm, your torso, except that it's very decorative and has all of this little arms inside of little arms inside of.
And when you say your, it means to each of us individually. It looks when I look at it, it looks like my arm.
Right.
Oh, how very disturbing.
All of the decorations, like I say, every vein, every mole that you might have is recreated by.
So it's entering, it's echoing to us individually.
It somehow is doing that, yes.
Wow. This is, and we're noticing this. It's like, my goodness, look, that's the scar I had when I.
Well, you and Dabrowski actually already noticed. You noticed it when you got the arm out of.
Yeah.
And it changes color. It changes color from it turns purple in the dark, and it slowly turns back to white in the sun.
It feels like we found the arm such a terrible time ago.
Now, with what Thursby said, if he pointed out at the scar, but if it looks like my arm, I wouldn't have the same scar. So when he was pointing at it, and he's like, "Look at the scar," and I'm like, "There's no scar there," or did I see a scar?
You're kind of right. It's almost like in that instant that you look at it, the patterns rearrange themselves.
Okay.
To your perception.
It's almost like it exists I mean, as much as an individual people's mind as it exists at all, if that makes any kind of sense.
Yeah.
And yet it feels like very delicate porcelain. It's lightweight. Wow. It looks like you could shatter it by hitting it on the ground.
Does it remain cool to the touch, or does it warm up when held?
Cold only like porcelain would. If you hold it long enough, it'll warm up.
Oh, I don't want to hold it long enough.
No.
That does bad things.
So what do you think about moving them into different rooms?
I think that's a good idea, but I mean the torso is already kind of leaving an imprint on me, and the checkerboard, almost like a checkerboard pattern on my chest and
rash.
Yeah, I'm debating whether or not maybe I should stay with it and just change rooms with you without telling the front desk, or hand the torso over to you and see if the rash starts healing on me.
Yeah, I think that seems an interesting experiment. We can find out. You have been also suffering perhaps psychosomatic injuries with your arm, Dabrowski? You were having a hard time moving also the other day. Do you feel better?
I don't know. As I've noticed, my balance is a little off as well.
You know, of course, poor Marie and Pierre Curie poisoned themselves very thoroughly because they did not understand the potential effects of radium. They licked samples and slept with a bar of it beside them and so on. And the cancer was very terrible.
Well, I haven't been sleeping with the torso. I've just had it in the chest. So
what, you haven't? I hold the arm every night. I hold it tight. I don't really.
The Sarnathians are not a group of people one wants to emulate.
Yeah.
I don't see. Well, I wouldn't usually want to depart with it, but obviously, since I've been more open with the sharing of these artifacts, maybe I can let Theodore keep it for the night in his room in the same chest.
I would like to answer an unasked question, and that is, you do not feel any particular psychological draw to the object. As far as you're concerned, it's just an object, but an important one. But you're not like, my precious. It's a thing.
I like it. So I keep to it.
Yeah, so I will ask Concierge for some advice on an interesting, unusual, perhaps kind of locking mechanism for my trunk. And we will see whether, if we leave it alone for an hour, some mysterious force pops it open.
Should we report this to concierge or hotel security, like saying, "Hey, look, our lock's been broken"?
I don't think so. I think someone at the hotel is one that let it in, or else the door lock would be messed up.
I still don't understand the motivation to relock the hotel room door behind them after making this display. This is why I again think of non-human agency.
Yeah.
Is there any? I don't know. I sound incredibly paranoid, so bear with me. The only way to get in and out of the room without messing with the door locks is through the windows, which are not locked. But
aha!
If I look out the window, I mean, are there lots of people like walking outside?
Yeah.
Is it like, yeah?
I mean, it's not a huge amount of people. It's winter, but it is Venice, and
just as Dr. Neruda says that, I rush to the closet in this room and throw the doors open.
Okay. You are instantly attacked by your winter coats, and just winter coats.
I wanted to make sure we're all looking and wondering.
You're looking to see if there's like a hole up above. Or...
Yeah, just like if someone's still in the room, like maybe we really did catch him.
Yeah, there's nobody in there.
No, okay, all right.
Your things seem to be completely undisturbed.
All right.
Also outside, actually, now that I think about it, there's not a street outside. You're actually in Venice, so there's water lanes.
So outside the window, it's water. There's not people.
Yeah, there's a little balcony where they might plant flowers or something, but it's just a straight drop down to the water.
Gondoliers and water taxis.
Okay, so when we move things around, is there a way to lock the windows?
Sure, yeah. And that does bring up the question I need to ask is, how are you going to secure the simulacrum pieces from this point on? You've got a broken lock, both broken locks.
Yeah, well, things have been those trunks. I'm going to go back to my room, take up some sort of bedclothes that are thick, wrap up the torso, carry it into my room, set it in my regular trunk, set the regular lock on that trunk, and then go out into the city and find something sturdy for the overnight.
That is certainly possible. I mean, there are people traveling, so there will be places that sell trunks. And
it is a city of citizens also, so they will probably have perhaps even an interesting mechanism that is less common.
Yeah. I wanted to take my trunk because, well, it's my trunk. I want to take it to, I guess, a locksmith to repair the lock.
Okay. As I recall, it's late afternoon, early evening.
Yeah. It took us, we got in at 8 in the morning. We went to the library pretty soon, but we've had lunch and traveled for a couple of hours each way.
I mean, I could do it in the morning. I just don't want to take it on the train without it being locked.
Yeah, you could probably talk to the concierge and he could tell you where to find
a new chain
locksmith.
A new chain and lock. Good tool.
All right. So it's at this point, we'll say that it's early evening. Is there anything that you guys want to do before you eat? And once again, it is Venice, so it's beautiful. And
yeah, I guess we would avoid another German restaurant so as not to attract any more black shirt attention. Have I had time to get an improved lock on my trunk, or will I have to wait till tomorrow also?
Probably have to wait till tomorrow.
That's fair. So yeah, maybe we'll eat close to the hotel and not be out as long for things to move about.
Okay. So you all head out. Probably to dinner? Go ahead.
Yeah.
What I did was before we head out, we have closets, right?
Correct.
Okay. So
probably wardrobes back then, right?
Wardrobes. Okay. So I'm just thinking. So if we have the pieces separately contained, we put them in a closet or a wardrobe, then we could shut that. And actually, no, this wouldn't work. Yeah, it would regardless. I was just thinking of a way to try to see if something's opening it up. Yeah, never mind. Okay, carry on. Sorry.
All right.
Can we agree that there is peace and my rooms are farther down the corridor from each other? I want to increase the distance between the pieces and see if
at least one of our rooms in between us.
Yeah, you could say, you get the farthest rooms apart.
Excellent.
You can switch around if need be.
Okay, so off you go into the night.
I put a do not disturb sign, do not clean, on my door.
Por favore.
Por favore, sì.
Actually, I can add a detail in there. Your rooms were cleaned. They probably did that in the daytime when you were out.
The bed was made and such.
The bed was made. The simulacrum laid on the bed, but the bed had been made underneath it.
With a little chocolate next to the simulacrum.
Have we even slept here? I mean, wouldn't have they probably?
Oh, okay, yeah. So your beds were already. You haven't slept here yet. So
So.
I mean, we've encountered already one person who, with a strain, vanished from a train. So there are ways to enter and leave spaces.
Yeah.
Beyond physical means.
Yeah.
when we get to the restaurant, I'm going to look for a paper to catch up on the evening paper. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe there'll be a picture of you standing next to the torso.
Yeah. They'll be like, who is this attractive man?
Supernumerary steals show.
So you end up going out. You go out and you have a nice meal. You do get a newspaper and you look through it. You don't see any more news. The things going on in Milan are not that interesting to the people in Venice, but they got one little thing in there, this afternoon. There is a lot of really lively nightlife that goes on, especially around the area that you are. You see people enjoying their evening. It's chilly, it's cold, there's no snow, but the lapping of the water on the lake, or on the ocean. You do notice that horrible sort of, mucky smell. It's gotten even stronger this evening. The locals just kind of ignore it as they're going about their merry way. You might hear a few people comment on it, that the water looks like there's some sort of oil slick on it. And hopefully that the tide will wash it out in the middle of the night. There are gondolas, there are water taxis, there are things going on all over, and there are pretty lights everywhere. So against the water, it's actually a very charming and romantic looking city. But nothing in particular happens this evening. Is there anything you want to do before you return and go back, go to bed?
I have read of a sherry called Amontillado that I wish to try while we are in town.
They keep that in the vaults underground in a back corner. People who go for it don't ever come back out. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think we want to be near the moved artifacts and see what becomes of them before we return tomorrow to our Giorgio and see what he has found.
So how late do you stay out? How many hours did you want to stay away from the apartments or the rooms?
I mean, we went to get Italian. Those dinners can tend to take a few hours, I imagine.
Yeah.
So, at least a couple.
Oh, yeah. Say 2.5.
Say 3 hours.
Yeah, 3 at times.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll say that it's around 10 when you get back. There are a few people in the lobby of the hotel. There, of course, is like a cocktail bar that's in there, and people are drinking, and there's a piano playing somewhere. It's actually quite charming, quite lovely. Whether you're tired or not, you can go up to your rooms. Nothing seems to have been disturbed. Everything is right where you placed it.
I'm going to go down to the bar, and if there's seats around the piano player, sit there and sip a sweet vermouth and try and strike up just a casual conversation with someone with the goal of, hey, does the water always kind of got this mucky smell, or is that just the season?
Well, it could be the season, Signore. It seems that of late there's been a lot of, muck coming up from the sea. Hopefully these things do happen occasionally, but it's particularly bad right now. It should go away.
Oh, that's good. It's my first time in Venice, and I'm just enjoying it. I'm just trying to get a feel for the city.
Beautiful city. Lots of things to see. Have you visited San Marcos yet and seen the inside? It's spectacular.
Oh, it's on our list. Yes. We went to the library. It was amazing. Traveling with some bookworms, That's why they didn't. That's why they didn't come down for a drink.
Well, it says there's a lot of beautiful museums, and Venice is not the city that it used to be. It used to be the wealthiest city on the planet, and all of these buildings, every one of them is different. Along the canal. The word in Italian is palace. They're palaces. These were extremely wealthy people, and there's a lot of them that you can just walk up, and for a very small fee, they'll let you wander about for a couple of hours inside their buildings. Mostly the older ones that the families aren't living there anymore, but sometimes they will have a part of the house they live in, and they let the city maintain the rest of it because of its beauty and its art. But it's quite a. You have something you could do every day for 1,000 years here to look at.
Wow. I think I will. Thank you.
Well, enjoy your time.
I shall.
Anybody else drinking or? Nope. Okay. So, yeah, Gunter, you're coughing quite a bit and sneezing.
Yeah. Yes, I am.
And you end up going back up to your room. So everybody's just going to go to bed.
Yeah, I went for a bit. I took the suggestion partially from Thursby to put the trunk that has the torso in the wardrobe with a chair in front of it, not so it will knock over if it opens.
Okay.
Not pocket, but so I will hear.
All right. So I would like you to all do. We're going to assume you've gone to sleep. I would like you all to do we're gonna do a spot hidden, but it's actually whether you're going to wake up. But Gunter, you have a penalty dice because you were drinking. So,
well, a hard success.
Fail.
93. I'm snug as a bug.
11.
Ooh,
Ooh, that's an extreme. Boom.
I also got an extreme. I got an 8.
So we're all sound asleep. The room is fairly. I mean, it's comfortable. The beds are nice. It's an expensive hotel. About 4 o'clock in the morning, maybe a little bit before 4. Those of you who passed, you're suddenly awoken by a strange noise. It sounds like a woman screaming somewhere. It's coming from outside your window and a ways off. But she's screaming something in Italian over and over again you can't really tell unless you get up.
Oh, yeah, I'll go to the balcony window. Swing it over.
Yes, I will say.
You might catch a glimpse, not right outside where you are, but across the channel, across the little channel. There's kind of a sidewalk border, that goes along the side and bridges. A woman runs past, and she seems to be in absolute abject terror, just screaming at the top of her lungs, "Muerta, muerta!"
Dead.
And she vanishes out of sight after just a couple of seconds, but you can still hear her yelling in the distance.
Is there something chasing her?
You don't see anything.
So is she close enough to yell out? Do I see her?
Before you even think of it, she's already out of sight. Okay. There's so many turns and twists and things.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But you do see people's lights coming on here and there as they're also being awakened by her.
How many stories are we in the hotel?
We'll say you're 3 stories up.
Right, yeah.
So we could see her, but not great detail at all.
Correct.
Lamplights only.
Does one of you want to run down with me? I'd like to go out and see.
I will run down anyway, especially if she's ran off one direction. I might. Dorian's head is to see what she was going on about and might go in the direction she came from.
Okay, and I'll join Dorian.
Yeah. Okay. I'll stay here and watch to see if anything else follows, etc. And I will check the torso.
Okay.
The hell.
So down you go. You go out onto the side of the hotel, where there is a little bit of walkway. There are gondolas tied up, and there are still a few water taxis, but very few. And the lights of the city are there's not as many going on. You're not really sure which direction she went.
But did we see which direction she was running from, though? Because that would be where the death would be, probably.
Yes. I mean, you've seen. Once again, it's just like from where. It could be any of 20 or 30 paths that she'd come before you looked.
Yeah.
But we seemingly are at a standstill.
So I guess I'll just sort of be quiet there at the intersection where we saw her, or I saw her, and just sort of hope for...
You do start to notice a few other people have come out to look around. But after a few minutes, most people just go back in, you know.
Yeah, there was something is strange, don't you think?
Yeah, sure. She was yelling something about death or dying or something like that. Actually, we did speak Italian, so I'm guessing where that was dead.
Yeah. Why do we make this place such a maze?
Yeah.
I never understood why it was designed. Well, I do, but you know.
It's charming, beautiful, but when you're trying to find somebody, it becomes quite difficult.
Or find out where they came from, it is increasingly difficult.
The answer being that it was built around the waterways. It wasn't following roads.
Yeah.
Do you want to do anything else, or it's about 4:20?
I guess I'd just look, see if I can hear anything, and if I don't see anything after like 20 minutes, so I'll go back to my room.
For a little while, you could hear somewhere off in the distance what sounded like her yelling. Eventually, that stopped, and you do think that you might have heard. I honestly, I don't know if they do this in Italy, but you might have heard like a police whistle. But once again, way off. You wouldn't be able to sort of know where it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to be able to track down anything here.
I guess our answers may come in the newspaper tomorrow.
Right.
If anything is afoot.
Yeah.
It could just be a very drunk woman, or she might have been distressed or something. I don't know. But it just seems too coincidental. But let's retire to our rooms for a day. Maybe we can have a whiskey before we go back to sleep. I have a bottle lying around.
Okay. So you do that, and you guys are really pretty tired. You had a long train ride, and you came in and wandered around all day. So you have your drink and you go back to sleep, and you don't probably wake up until, I don't know, 7:30, 8. When would you guys want to be waking up? Are you guys early risers, late risers?
Oh, late riser.
So 9:30.
Yeah, 9 sounds good.
It's 8:45, just to be a pain in the ass.
So we'll say at 9:30 you all end up downstairs in the little cafe that's there. What are your plans for today? Do you guys talk about this?
I find a newspaper straight away, just out of curiosity. I want to see if there's a newspaper.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do a library. So you're looking through the.
Oh shit! I will spend 6 luck because I have quite a bit of luck. So.
All right. So you're looking through the newspaper, and you run across a headline that seems what you're looking for.
Shit! I think I spotted something. Okay. Horrific murder. Last night around 4 a.m., a young woman, Anselmo Malati, was found by the city's nightwalk screaming hysterically. The woman had witnessed the insane murder of her fiancé, Mario Rossi, next to the Rio del Vin, near the Murano glass factory. Murano glass factory. Rossi had been somehow impaled upon a 10-foot iron spike that was part of a surrounding fence. The man's throat had been torn out as if by a wild beast. Miss Moretti is being held by the police until a strange and grisly murder can be explained.
It's very bizarre.
That is bizarre indeed.
This is the Murano glass factory in Venice, not the Murano glass factory on the island of Murano, I'm guessing.
It's in Venice, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because Murano's like 45 minutes by ferry away from where.
Yeah, there's no way. No. A very convenient boat ride.
Yeah.
No, this is a large glass factory that is in Venice.
Interesting.
I see. Fyodor, it seems something was afoot last night.
It seems, gentlemen, that you are lucky that you took long enough to put on your shoes and did not have your throats torn out by this wild beast.
Yeah, my God.
I stayed at the window and saw nothing chasing the lady. The streets were quiet except for her cries and maybe some policemen's whistles. Impaled on a fence, we have to see how high the fence was. Of course, we must assume that this is not a coincidence, given the travels we have made so far.
No, I thought it said 10-foot fence.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, and then, to have his throat ripped out while impaled on that fence, if that's what happened, that'd be a very large creature to reach up to that height.
Whatever.
It depends on how he fell and how long the spikes are in comparison to this fence, but we would have to see.
Yeah. Well, sounds like a place to go check out in Venice.
That is nearly 10 feet. That is nearly to me. I am 5'5".
Now this isn't. Hold on. This isn't the first death we've heard of like this. Faccia
was also dropped onto the Duomo, and we do not know how his body was mangled. The police or the report said something like it was hideous.
Yeah.
And I told you, he did not die above Il Duomo. He died down an alley near the opera house, and I ran into it, and his body was missing only smears of blood. So it seems as though we are talking about something that flies, yeah.
Yeah, and have we been... You think it followed us then?
What were those?
I think that's... Yeah, I would think that's very possible, Dr. Neruda. I mean... something new. We had our acquisitions in our room,
There were those bizarre flying beasts we rode in our dreams, Dr. Neruda.
Right, but those didn't seem particularly... I mean, they were strange and unnerving, but they didn't seem hostile.
On the contrary. Also, they were operating under the instruction of the god Nodens. If they were on here as well, they would perhaps have a different agenda. However, the one in Milano killed Faccia, and I thought perhaps it was because of his failure to attain the torso. Does that mean that this Rossi fellow was going to try to...
Possibly.
We have to find out who this Mariossi and his fiancée were.
Yeah, she might know more than she realizes.
While we're down here, I'm going to kind of just keep, because I'm a little paranoid, look around, make sure that no one's like, maybe paying attention to our conversation.
No, but you do hear that some other people are talking about something similar, and it's a terrifying thing to see in the newspaper. So it is on the lips of other people. How horrible.
If any similar death had been noted, the newspaper piece would have mentioned this because it is so striking.
Yes.
Understanding Italian, do I hear any of the hotel staff sort of talking about this, or any of
the? No, not really. I mean, they're trying to do their jobs, and but you do hear some of the clients. A horrible murder. How can this happen? Where was the watch? What's going to happen to the poor woman?
Okay, so nothing out of the ordinary.
Mm-mm. You also do hear some complaints about the nasty smell. That still keeps coming up because it hasn't gotten any better.
Yeah.
You just need to look into this. I guess to start, maybe just having a peek at the glass factory, getting a little more information about Mario Rossi. Who he was, what he was doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, killed at the glass factory in Milan. They were killed at an auto factory. I mean, might obviously go check that out, but next time we're at the library, I might look and see, hey, are they possibly owned by the same corporation, or is there some link, or is it maybe just a coincidence?
Cool.
I don't. You see, I would hazard to guess that it's something of a coincidence, just because this death doesn't mirror the death at the Alfa Romeo plant.
True.
It mirrors the death of Faccia, who was dropped on top of the Duomo. So,
yeah. Well,
I am curious if it is the same thing that has done both of these killings, and it is interested in the Sedefkar pieces and can fly, it could have gone into our rooms through the windows.
Very true.
And it also could have had an interest in this poor fellow, not because of his factory associations, but perhaps associations of wherever the piece that's in Venice is.
Yeah.
As Gunter said, there's all these old houses that people could go tour. I would hazard the guess that if we're going to find a rare piece of art somewhere here, like the Sedefkar piece, that may be a good place to start looking.
Well, shall we press on to the factory? I'm done with my breakfast. The coffee was delicious.
Excellent.
So you're going to head over to the glass factory. It's a bit of a walk, but if the woman was running, you can figure it's not too far. You get over there and you do see evidence that the police were there, that, there's an area sort of cordoned off. You do see a lot of, town police and some black shirts, which just inevitably make you feel a little nervous in the area. You see the fence around the factory, and what in fact this fence looks like is they are iron spikes that come up out of the ground, but they curve over slightly on the top, all of them. So he would have had to have been slammed up onto that spike.
Jeez.
But he would have been hanging there 10 feet above the ground. Something would have to thrown him up there with incredible force.
I suppose they're holding the woman because, although she could not possibly have put him there, they must assume she's part of some conspiracy. It would require, I would think, almost a catapult or a group of acrobats to launch a man up onto that from the street below. This is a street or is a sidewalk?
There is a street, yeah. This is on one of the islands.
We need to find her and somehow ask her what she saw.
Well, she's in custody, however.
Yeah.
We should have brought a policeman friend, an Interpol man.
Yeah. The lady we heard screaming, did it sound like natural first language Italian, or did it sound like a foreigner screaming in Italian?
No, it sounded like a natural foreign Italian.
Oh, okay. Darn.
A young woman screaming.
Got it.
Now that you know the details from the newspaper, it was a woman who had witnessed her fiancé murdered. She just ran screaming into the night.
Yeah.
But she saw what happened, probably.
Yeah, we need to somehow talk to her. I was thinking if she was from one of the countries we are affiliated with, we might be able to have an in there, but not so much here.
Yeah, the newspaper used an interesting phrase, the insane murder.
Yeah, it sounds like an insane, to hoist a body so far up. I mean, it was either thrown up, flown up, or hooked on the ground and pulled up.
I wonder if she has told the police what she saw and they do not wish to pass it on because it seems so unlikely.
Possibility. Who would believe a raving madwoman? It looks bad.
And it was so early in the morning that the chances of another witness are highly unlikely. What would they be doing there? It's so early in the morning, though. It was 4 a.m. we heard this. So what were they doing there at 3:30 in the morning?
Yes, what possible reason could two lovers have to be wandering the streets of Venice?
Yeah, but at the glass factory. No, I see what you're saying, but at the glass factory.
Well, no, but it could be true. They could, maybe if a gentleman is a worker of a glass factory, has a key and decided, we can have a little romantic quarrel in the
probably at the glass factory.
You're in the area, so there's probably a lot of other things around as well as the glass factory.
Yeah, I suppose, given how complicated the street numbering here is, their telephone book, if they have it, will also be mad. Probably only a small percentage of the residents have telephone, and so there was no way to find out what. Also the name Rossi. I'm sure 10% of the inhabitants of Venice are named Rossi. But it would be useful to know if his home was on the other side of this Murano plant from her home or some such. Well, we can go to the library and see if Georgie has found anything, or also if he went to school with Mr. Rossi or Signora Moretti. It's a small place compared to many.
True. I mean, anything short of Dorian using his Italian and slight psychology skills to try to fib his way into getting to talk to her as some kind of alienist, but
I
don't know how kindly black shirts are going to take to foreigners trying to.
Dr. Dabrowski, we do speak fluent Italian. We might.
Yes, I am very.
I
could use with Theodore's assistance.
I speak a little Italian. I can try to bail you out after they have you arrested.
Yes, me and Theodore can go. Theodore could be my assistant, and yeah.
I was joking. I don't think you should. I mean,
I know Neluda, but it isn't important. It's not an implausible solution.
Considering the black shirts, they might just deport you.
That is true, but it is worth to keep it in case. You never know.
So one part of that makes sense is they might suspect such a woman is mad, given that what she describes must be impossible. But that does not mean they want strangers butting in on the investigation.
It's true, but it's worth to keep in mind just in case. You never know.
Maybe we could find out in their local phone books where she lives, because it used to be pretty common to have like an address associated with a phone number. And then when they release her, if they do, chances are they will, because they probably won't find anything on her. We could then talk to her then. We just might have to wait an extra day or so.
That is true.
Unmarried woman, she probably lives with her family, and there are probably fewer Morettis than there are Rossis, but still, I don't know what the chances are. Well, let us see if we can find the telephone book.
There's probably 50 or 60 of them in the telephone book, so you have no idea.
And with Morettis as well. Moretti and Rossi are very common names. Last names, anyway.
Does Italy have like a system of asylums? Like if they really think this, I mean, we've seen plenty of things to get us locked up in a madhouse if we said anything about them. I mean, if she was witness to something, would they ship her off somewhere?
It's a fairly famous prison here in Venice, so there's probably some insane asylums. Maybe on the edge, maybe on the shore of the.
Yeah.
We could visit the famous Bridge of Sighs and see if we happen to be there when they walk her over to lock her up forever. Excuse me, may we have an interview, please?
Now that's a crazy idea, Lord. Now that's a crazy
crackpot schemes.
Yes.
Well, I think we can talk to Georgie and perhaps something else will come up.
All right.
True indeed.
So you make your way back over to the Bibliotheca Marciana, and you find Giorgio, and he's like, "Oh, Signors, it's very difficult, the task you've given me, to see what I can find. I'll tell you that Napoleon, when he and his troops came into the city, they were shamelessly welcomed by the Venetian Senate. They didn't want to cause any problems or have any difficulties. So his troops moved in, they garrisoned in the city. They brought things with them. Napoleon decided to reform, the city laws and things like that. He had he closed monasteries. He looted them. He had all of these things that he had been dragged. There was great difficult time. So there is a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of stuff from the soldiers and from that whole thing, but it's all very confused with so many other things. There was a plague going on at the time. People were having difficulties. There was some sort of disease running rampant in the city that nobody seems to be able to identify.
What kind of
what
malady?
I saw a paper on it. I didn't pull that, but it seemed like there was some sort of an arthritis attack. A great many people were complaining about inability to walk. It was like an epidemic, and they were never able to identify what it was.
I wonder.
Yeah, Georgie, I appreciate that didn't seem to be of interest, but I think it very much might fit into a pattern we've seen.
Oh, well, maybe I can find you some documentation on that sort of thing.
Much appreciated if you can.
Did the severe arthritis just affect one particular area of the people?
I think that the locals, the physicians all seemed to consider that it was some sort of an outbreak. Of course, they didn't really understand very well the way modern medicine does what was going on, but there's also a large part of the population that thought it was witchcraft and that somebody had brought some evil curse on them. There's quite a lot of documentation from right at that period, and I can see what I can find for you.
Yes, this is of interest, in fact.
Okay, well, now you also mentioned, did you mention records from Mary Celeste?
Yeah, we asked him to try to locate a document, the image de Diablio.
He says, I think I may have found an area where those things were stored. It's something that I found a catalog for. It says the Santa Maria Celeste collection.
Yes.
So I can, once I've located that, I can gain access. If it's uncatalogued, I might be able to get you in there, so that if it's uncatalogued, they probably don't think anything is of any great value. But to you, the documents that you're looking for might be in there.
Yeah, that's also very good work. Did you happen on your way here to hear about the unusual death that happened?
Oh, in the news this morning. That's horrible.
I feel we actually were, some of us were awakened by this young woman.
Oh, you heard it.
We heard her run down across a bridge and down the street crying, "Muerte!" But when my friends got downstairs, they could find nothing of her. Do you know the family? Is she?
I don't know them at all. But I do have a college friend who said that his cousin is on the police force, and he told him that it wasn't just what was reported in the paper, that there was more to it than that, but that the woman was lost her mind.
Mm-hmm.
And he leans forward and looks around quietly and sort of leans in, and he said that apparently she chewed her own tongue off and kept screaming about the devil, the devil.
Oh, this is very tragic.
Yes, they're going to institutionalize her. It's
Wow.
a horrible tragedy.
It is horrible indeed. Very. That is the best place for her, I guess. Keep her safe from herself and others.
I mean, who can guess what she saw?
Well, this is the thing. Unless she is a member of one of the famous families who goes to such lengths to murder off their relatives in this great city over the centuries, she has masterminded a completely impossible murder. His body being mutilated the way it was and pushed so high and so on. But if she is tongueless, then I think she's not a Borgia mastermind, but the victim of some terrible event.
Indeed. I mean, if you're going to murder somebody, you're going to want to get away with the murder, not run screaming that the murder has occurred.
Well, Dr. Dabrowski, you've worked with some individuals before with extreme mental trauma before, haven't you?
Yes, in my brief studies and work, yes.
Wonderful.
The brain's fickle. It can sometimes manifest itself in different ways depending on what you have seen. So if she has seen something horrific, it doesn't have to be, and it could just be how he died. It can trigger things, and it can lead to the biting of tongues off, or the ripping of skin. There's loads of different cases about that, but
too bad.
Some people rip their fingernails off. It's a horrific thing.
There must be some way to find her family, because you might be able to help her, actually, if only we knew how to be able to do such a thing. And I'm saying this out loud in front of maybe
Georgia says, well, I'm sure that she'll be taken care of.
Yes. It's difficult to, I mean, if it's true that she's chewed her own tongue off, it's going to be awfully difficult to have a conversation.
Yes, and I'm going to be honest, the way of helping her will be to just put her in a padded cell and throw away the key. Sadly.
Great.
No, that is how most
1920s mental health.
I wouldn't do that personally, but that is how most institutions do, especially if they don't know how to help a person. She has ripped out her own tongue. They might try other methods, but most likely they will just throw her in a padded cell, throw away the key, and won't even help her, and she will just not see the light of day again, sadly.
Is there a madhouse in the lagoon of Venice itself, or does she have to go to the mainland for this?
I don't actually know the answer. So
the answer is I actually think there is one on the outskirts of Venice.
There probably is, yeah.
But I mean, she's going to be. I mean, this happened less than 24 hours ago, and she's, removed her own tongue. So I don't think she's going to be in any state of mind to discuss what she saw anytime soon. So I don't know if pursuing an interview with her is worth our time.
Even if something heals inside her mouth, she might only be saying the avro for the rest of her life.
It is a strange time indeed. Well, gentlemen, I will begin my research, more research, and maybe check with me in the afternoon. See what I can find. I think I know where some of that information is.
Just for clarification, she will probably be sent to San Savolo, which is a mental institution just outside of Venice. It's an island.
There you go.
You're very knowledgeable about Venice, and it's
yes,
it's almost as if you had some sort of thing that just told you the answer.
I'm very knowledgeable in the
Did you check to make sure that asylum has been built yet?
Yes, it is. It actually it will be turned into a museum in 1978, but we're a little bit way off.
I'm gonna make a standing roll for all of Dorian's prophesying.
Dobrovsky, I have become much more open-minded recently, but this prophesying of 55 years in the future is pretty too far from being. So, right. George, if you were a group of curious visitors to Venice for the first time collectively, if not individually, what would you recommend we go to see while you spend a few hours digging up this material?
Well, have you seen the church, St. Marcos?
Yeah, we have been just next door, but we have not visited it itself.
Got the Doge's Palace. You've got this library. You've got there's so many things to see. Bridges, and take yourselves a little boat ride up and down the canals and see what you can.
You are a native, yes, Giorgio?
See, yes.
Now, I understand that the fouler waters happen in the winter. Is it usually this rough or this lengthy?
It is very sluggish right now. The problem is when the founding fathers created the city, they didn't know anything about the tides and the way they would flow in and flow out. And they created a kind of giant stagnant trap. It tends to get caught in here and smell pretty bad, and then we'll have a good high tide, and the water will be replaced by fresh water. Well, it's salt water, but it's fresh salt water. And then the smell will go away. But we natives get kind of used to it. But I will tell you that it smells pretty bad right now. Mm-hmm. And I apologize for that.
It is what it is. I shall look at, I didn't notice the moon last night, but I shall see about the tides. It might become fresh soon.
Indeed. I wouldn't go swimming. I think I don't know this for sure, but I think the sewage ends up going into it too. So. But don't look at the water. Look at the buildings. They're much prettier. And we'll see you this afternoon. And so he goes off. What do you guys want to do?
I think we should go to the church. When I was down in the bar, that was the first place that someone mentioned. It must be very beautiful. And churches were repositories for history, so maybe we'll have some luck there.
All right. It's not that far. It's just across the plaza. So I think I showed you a picture of the outside, which I'll show you again. There's the outside of San Marcos. And as you approach it, you go in through the front, and the inside of it is gold with icons painted all over it, all in mosaic. So it sort of sparkles in the light. It's built in the traditional Byzantine style. And so its layout is more or less like a large fat cross with the altar on this side, and the where you're coming in is over here, the narthex. Traditionally, churches are built with the altar facing east towards the rising sun. And then there are side chapels and little side chapels and little cubbies with icons, and it is spectacular. And it's in pretty good condition. All the wealth of the city, a lot of it was placed into the gold and the work, and the mosaics are beyond anything. I mean, they're so intricate, and yet they're 50 feet away from you in the ceiling. It's so beautiful. There are quite a bit of tourists looking around in the church as well. And you probably spend a couple of hours.
Yeah, I'll do a couple of watercolor sketches of some of the interesting uncommon figures. Also, I note that the mosaic gold is much glintier. If they had painted or even gold leafed it, it would go flat. But if you move even a small bit, the reflection is very different.
They would take one layer of glass, and then they would put gold leaf on it, and then they would put another layer of glass on the top of it and fuse it together, and then cut little tiny squares and put those on. So yeah, it does. It shimmers. It stays forever shiny. All right, and then so you spent a few hours doing that. What else are you going to do today?
We're right across from the Doge's palace.
There's
a large library there. I'm wondering if actually, nah, that library front's been covered.
Well, I don't have pictures of the Doge's palace, but you can definitely look at the Doge's palace, kill a few hours doing that. I imagine it is spectacular as well. It is built very much the way a lot of the palaces are built, in that it's a large rectangle and there's a big rectangular central courtyard. So these things can be 3 to 5 stories high, and you go around and around and up the stairs and around and up the stairs and around. Quite lavish.
Between the Basilica and the Campo Ducale, I'm going to go up and see if my room is intact.
Okay. I wanted to add to that, though, that there's also a lot of campaniles, which are towers that you can see all throughout the city that rise up above the city. Okay, so you're going to go.
Yes.
What's that?
Bell towers, yes.
A lot of them have bell towers. A lot of them have clocks. A lot of times the clocks don't face out into the city. They face into the center of the campanile. They build their clock towers for themselves, not for the rest of the town. All right, so you're going to go back to your room, maybe freshen up.
Yeah, see if everything is in order.
Okay. Do a luck roll.
Mm-hmm.
You're by yourself?
Aha. That is not a successful roll.
Are the rest of you with them? Are you going to go up and check your rooms as well? You know, it's
Sure.
Yeah, paranoia.
Yeah,
All
probably
right.
a good idea. Stick together. Don't get lost.
Okay. Well, we'll just go on that luck roll. As far as you can see, without tearing your whole room apart, everything seems to be like the way you left it,
Okay.
except that your beds are made.
Okay.
So the maids did come on.
The ruby heart is in the sock drawer inside the handkerchief.
It's right where you left it. Yeah.
The chair is in front of the wardrobe where I left the trunk that has the torso in.
Yes.
That is as far as I would probably look.
Okay. The same as for everybody. Everything is where you placed it.
Excellent.
You guys, do an afternoon freshen up, and then are you going to head back over to the library? Find Giorgio.
I'm keeping note of how long we were gone when the pieces were moved the first time.
Okay.
And a rough experiment. So we were gone maybe 6 hours after we checked in before we found the pieces moved. And then last night we checked them after only a couple of hours and they were okay. And then today I waited 4 hours maybe. So I'm trying to make a little chart in my notebook about if there's a breaking point.
Okay. All right. So you return to the library, and you find Giorgio at his desk. He's sitting there doing some research, and he looks up and he's like, "Oh, excellent! You've returned. I don't know how interested you're going to be in this, but this seemed at least a bit related to what you were talking about. I found an official report from a Captain Dubois. Let me show this to you.
Official report summary, Captain Dubois, 16 November 1797. Sir, regarding the disturbances of the last 3 days, I must report that on the 13th November, an unruly mob of Venetians gathered at San Marco barracks gates. They defied my request to disperse. The reason they gave was that they wanted me to deliver one of my privates, Jean Boucher, to their hands. They claimed that he had caused this grievous plague that afflicts Venice by evil arts. They seemed to genuinely believe the superstitious nonsense. Defying my direct command to depart, they attempted to storm the barracks and seize Boucher. I ordered the men under my command to fire. The first volley was directed over the heads of the mob. No second volley was required, as the crowd then dispersed. I then put the district under curfew. I interviewed Boucher and found him a docile soul of low intelligence and little enterprise. The only loot he has been able to gather on our glorious march across Europe is an odd porcelain leg. Boucher seems to think it a prize, although I doubt any other man under my command would think so. The next day, a delegation of prominent Venetians of the district visited me and again requested Boucher be tried for witchcraft. I imprisoned them all as the ringleaders of the mob. There the matter rests. There will be no further such unrest in the district under my command. On the 15th November, that event occurred which I had described to you privately. I deal with this matter in detail in my personal documents as not fitting for the subject of an official report. There is an annotation from a senior officer, Major Hautmont, commending his prompt action in dispersing the mob without bloodshed.
It would be very good to find the other documentation he spoke of outside of that report.
Yes, sir. And I've been trying to find it. There is a lot of such things, personal effects of the soldiers, but I think I might be able to find it eventually.
Excellent.
If it still exists, we assume that.
And private persons in these circumstances is easily damaged.
So go ahead.
I'm just verifying this Captain Dubois and the private Jean Boucher, they were part of the Napoleonic force, yes?
Correct, yes.
This was, and the Republic was dissolved by Napoleon, and they were in.
Yes, they were garrisoned here. Yes.
Yeah.
And now, and he reaches into his pocket, and he sort of looks around, and he hands you each a little badge that says, assistant or something like that on it. And he says, I know where the collection is located. There is a room downstairs. I can take you. But at the moment you are working as assistants for me, I can get you into that part of the thing. There's quite a lot of stuff in there. You might need some time to look through it.
Very good, Signor Giorgio. We are at your service.
And so he takes you down some winding stairs and into a level that you know that you're on an island, so it's solid underneath the ground. It has been built down into it. He takes you along a corridor and then to a final room. As he opens it up, there are quite a few documents, boxes with things in it. There are books. There are all sorts of things. There is the hint of fire damage to some of it in the room. You can smell that sort of smoky smell, musty smell. But he says, I can I can assist you, or I can go back and continue to look and leave you here. Be careful with things. Wear gloves. He gives you all white gloves. I don't think most of this is important. And probably the higher officials don't think it's that important either, because otherwise they would have done something with it.
Yeah, and a city as old as this accumulates quite a number of things over the centuries. Perhaps we will look on our own, and you can make sure no one comes down the stairs to arrest us.
Okay.
And if we find the documents that we can't understand, we will set them aside for you to help us with.
If anyone comes in and asks, you are assisting me in my research. You're all being paid handsomely by the people who've hired us. And I just don't have the time to go through all of this part of the research. So they won't know any difference.
Shocking.
Grazie. Well, and our Italian and French might come in handy here.
And so off he goes.
Our Latin.
Oh, I'm Latin.
Do you know any Latin?
Nope, just Italian.
I have Latin. So it's time to start looking through some old documents.
All right. So we'll shorten this up. You can do a group luck roll.
I have 57 luck.
I have 52.
56 on my end.
And then mine is mine's way too high.
I have 54.
70 luck.
So it is me. Oh, gentlemen, I have coughed and scattered dust everywhere.
No.
It's nothing. 93.
Do a 1d4.
Four. I assume that's the best outcome.
That's going to be 4 hours of looking through this. 4 years of searching. Yeah.
4 years later, 1927 rolls around.
All right. So you've been working all day. We'll say after a couple of hours, Giorgio comes down to check on you and brings you some very nice sandwiches. And he's like, any luck? And you haven't found any luck yet. But after another couple of hours, so it's been 4 hours. Let's see. Let's have you all do luck. Let's have you all do luck rolls. See who gets the best win.
Ooh. That's
76 is failure.
I passed by 7 points. I got 49 out of 56.
58 is a fail.
I pass by 32 points. Oh, no, pardon me.
Oh,
yeah.
That's really good.
42 points.
So, Theodore, you have been going through boxes and things, and you've been, sort of getting weary, and you're sitting there sort of leaning on a stack of things, and you're sifting through them and going along. And you get, a little bit of a cramp in your arm, which alarms you. You don't know why you've suddenly got a cramp in your arm, but in the process, you look down, and the book that is under your elbow is this.
Oh my goodness. Look right here.
It is Le Macini del Diavolo.
Del Diavolo.
And when you glance inside, it is not written in Latin. It is, sort of Latin, but it's closer to old Venetian Italian. So if you know Italian, you might be able to wend your way through it, but it's going to take some research and time to go through it.
I am fluent in Italian.
It seems to be an account written sometime in the 13th century.
Oh, old Italian.
And you've got it in your hand.
My friends, it is well into the afternoon at this point. I suggest that we wrap that up in this useful satchels that I have in the second pocket. And then we bring up to Giorgio a few interesting pieces of paper that we find now to ask him to translate for us for tomorrow. I think it is probably best that this is not even left in this library.
Agreed. We should pore over this in our rooms tonight.
Okay.
Put extra coffee.
Yeah, you will realize that it's going to take you more than a few hours of pouring over. It's very difficult.
Perhaps the next time we're on the Orient Express, we could tackle this manuscript.
Yes, that's probably a good idea.
There's very good coffee served there. Not that the coffee here in Venezia is disappointing.
All right, we can say that you work on it, but you're writing it out and to make sure you understand it before you jump to that scenario. All right, so you go back upstairs, and Giorgio has said, "Oh, you found something."
And do we have a handful of papers, something with any of the names we have heard and the sort of thing? Something plausible.
He says, "Well, they're interesting, but I did find the journal."
Wonderful.
Yes, it was buried quite deeply, but once I had Captain Dubois' name, I just scanned and looked through to see what I could find with him on it. This is what I found, and he hands this little volume to you. Of course, you're all still wearing white gloves.
The Journal of Captain Dubois, 15 November, 1797. Returned home last night, the 14th, most satisfied with my actions in dispelling the riot. As Voltaire said, I have only ever made one prayer to God, a very short one. O Lord, make my enemies ridiculous. And God granted it. It was very satisfying to see the looks on those fool Venetian faces as they were bundled off to prison. I hope their visit teaches them the comparative values of reason and superstition. At home, I found my sweet Vivienne struck by the plague. The poor little girl is as brave as any of my soldiers, but her leg has crippled and twisted overnight. She is only 2 years old. She should not be thus afflicted. I returned to the prison and questioned the delegation leaders. They told me to talk to Boucher. So I questioned him again late last night. I also pored over that strange artificial limb he so prizes. My own leg ached as I handled it and aches to this moment. Question, is it that the mere sight of this truncated limb in porcelain stirred some vestigial memory in my agitated mind, so that it felt as if my own left leg were amputated? I took the leg from Boucher and tried to break it. It would not break. I tried to burn it. It would not burn. It is not porcelain, but some strange unyielding substance that not even diamond will mark. That damned delegation was right. It is something evil, although I defend Boucher. He did not know, he has merely carried it here. I am not going to admit my mistake to those Italian fools. I realized what to do at last. The idea was so fitting that I burst out into a loud laugh. Last night I placed that cursed leg in secret within the San Marco Basilica, within the reliquary in the chapel of Saint Isidoro next to his holy bones. To my delight, this morning, my dear little Vivienne has recovered. She is as bright as ever. Today I hear from the medical staff, too, that the plague is steadily abating in virulence. I have given orders that the delegation be quietly released. That fool Boucher waylaid me this afternoon. He wants compensation for his prize. Such a ridiculous request will remain unfulfilled. His prize was a terrible curse, and God knows I have saved us from it. I know, Theodore, you, like your friend Dr. York, are prone to overtip the staff. but Giorgio is going to get a nice tip.
Yeah.
Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah,
good.
You've done excellent work.
Is this leg the thing that you're looking for? You said some artifact.
Yeah, might be.
It is. It could be what we're after for our
It's
research.
consistent
with the artifacts that we are seeking. Yeah.
I will see if I can find more information on this leg.
Yeah. Yeah.
Question for you, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
I, as a player, am not familiar with Catholicism or religions that have reliquaries.
Okay.
But Dr. Deruda would. So I'm just curious, are reliquaries like clergy only type of things? I'm assuming.
The relics, the Catholic Church is built on the relics of saints. So in order to have an altar, you have to have the relics of saints underneath it. And they're usually kept, that's usually bones. Sometimes it's, dried up, desiccated, severed body parts, but they're usually kept in ornate boxes. But they're not like just under altars. They're also usually, if they're famous, they'll be in chapels and in places where the Catholics can come up and show them veneration and kiss them and go on. They're kissing the box usually, not the actual bone.
And these are also often made of gold and ivory. And
the boxes are usually very kings and princes and things like that donated.
It's very valuable and well protected.
So just so I can understand, so the reliquary would be the box, or would the reliquary be a small room that the box would be put in?
It would be a box that
so it's the actual container.
It's in, yeah. Oh. And they can be, fairly large, depending.
So basically, this captain is saying he opened up that relic box and has placed the leg inside of it and then closed it.
Yeah, right. This is right here, right in San Marco Basilica. This is
San Marco. They went to the Holy Land to retrieve the relics of the Saint Mark, of the disciples. They needed a major relic to have a major church, to have a major city. So Venice is founded on this basilica. And even if the Saint Isidoro is a minor figure, we are privately discussing a very serious offense against very considerable logistical issues.
Well, it's the specific chapel though within the cathedral itself.
The Isidoro.
Side chapel for a minor saint. This might help us a bit. We will have to be very careful, however.
I'm sure we saved a little map from our original tour there, right? Could we look on that map to see like where the little chapels are? Would they be labeled hopefully on that map?
Do a luck roll.
All righty.
That's right. You do it.
Yep. Success. 49 out of 70.
Normally, these sort of maps would just have the major areas of the church labeled, but this one does have names for a lot of these little chapels. There is one little chapel kind of on the south end of the church. It's, through a door and around a corner and a little tiny rectangle, and it says Isidoro.
Oh, right here. Ooh, on the ocean side. On the seaside. Ooh, nice. This is right here, guys. Look.
Yeah, I think we have a good dinner tonight, and then we have some planning to do. Once we find out whether the pieces have already escaped their cells again.
Find out when it closes for tours.
I assume you're not talking about this in front of Giorgio.
Correct.
All the questions you had about relics, though, he would have been able to answer those. So.
Right. Well, I was saying.
Yeah, you already know.
I wouldn't have to ask anybody. My character wouldn't I do because I am ignorant of these things.
When's the last tour? Be very interested to get in on that last tour.
I mean, it's a functioning
right.
church.
It's a functioning church. I don't think they do anything at night. Probably Vespers, 4:00. They stop the tours.
I could attend.
Let's put it this way: it's a huge church with 1,000 hiding places.
Yes. So my idea is if I show up for a mass and just wander off, go to this little chapel.
I think the biggest problem is that you are looking to remove something the size of a human leg.
Well, if it's a side chapel, depending on where it is, if it has a window and somebody rents a boat and you row there, we pass the leg out the window.
Yeah, the row lower.
The one thing we know for certain is that we can't break it accidentally.
True.
That's helpful.
Although dropping it into the muck would be unfortunate. But.
I would not want to try to get it as a lagoon with holding my breath. No, many diseases.
Well, I used to do an amputation trick on my stage show where you could you would have a false limb, and it would look like I chopped off the limb. I could maybe rig up something if the windows don't open, where maybe we could kind of get it out.
That'd
Obviously,
be quite the live performance.
Yeah,
and your smoke and your mirrors.
Yeah, the thigh, with it being the thigh, would make it much harder. If it's just to the knee, it'd be much easier. But
brilliant, your best trick of all, Gunther.
Right. So
Giorgio, yes, your work has been very excellent. Anything else about this plague would be interesting, because it is exactly the sort of anomaly we were hoping to connect to this chain of events. And again, we have this handful of documents, if you could give a rough translation of. And
of course.
do you have the complete Dubois journal?
I've got this. It doesn't look like it's complete, but
if anything else, I imagine as a local, you find also his hypocrisy somewhat amusing, that he was willing to put all these men through these sufferings. If there's anything else about Private Jean Boucher in his papers or in documents, perhaps he was buried here if things didn't go well for him and so on, that would be of interest.
I will look through all the available stuff, see what I can find.
Your efficiency is remarkable and much appreciated.
All right. So what's your next one? What would you like to do? Well, what are we going to say? It's probably about 5. So it's late afternoon. The sun's getting close to the horizon. It is winter.
And it's a Thursday. Or Friday. Yeah, I mean,
so this
wouldn't hurt to go by the church just to see what we're working with.
And the church is right by our hotel, is it not?
Yes.
Yes.
We can go, as they say in the American movies, encase the joint.
Yes.
Yeah, but we should go in interest of paranoia, go check our rooms again, as we are wont to do, and then go find this out. Because, I mean, once we get this leg, get away clean with it, then we should really just pack up and head back to the Orient Express, don't you think? We have the book. We have once we get the piece, we should leave.
Do we think that the book? Oh yeah, we believe the book is the document we seek is in the book. The Diabolo. Yeah.
Unless I'm forgetting about something else.
Say what you said again.
In Venice, we were looking for the image,
right,
Diablo, which we have now.
Correct.
And the Sedefkar piece which we
Correct.
think we know where it is now.
Okay.
I can't remember if there was a third thing in Venice, or that was it. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't think so. I can't remember. You can look at your original notes. I thought you said something about the book containing something.
There's like the scrolls. So there's scroll of the body, scroll of the legs, scroll
correct.
of the left hand, scroll of the
As
right.
far as you know, the Immagini del Diavolo, you first heard about it when you were in London at the library. That it seemed to say there was a reference to the Sedefkar simulacrum inside that book. That's the only real reason I'm trying to find it. So the scrolls you haven't run across. Well, you've got one.
We've got the scroll of the head. We don't know where the rest are, but we didn't have any indication that they were in Venice. So once we get the leg, I think we should depart as soon as possible.
So there's a small question for me of whether we have to consider the Salzburg route or whether that is a return toward London affair. But we must bring the entirety of the pieces to Istanbul. So maybe we want to do everything before we get that far east. It's to be considered.
I think that's what we would want to do. I mean, once we get to Turkey, if we get to Istanbul, and we don't have all the pieces, we would have to take the pieces back anyway. We couldn't leave them in Istanbul.
The only thing mentioned by Smythe were cities along this particular route. What he's looking for is probably additional material if he can find it.
Mm.
You're right.
So perhaps if our little heist goes well, we'll be on the train again very soon.
So see, Trieste and Sofia, I see as other.
Yeah, Trieste would be the next place after this.
Excellent.
All right. So you guys said you're going to return to your rooms to clean up.
See if everything's intact.
Everything is exactly as you left it. Did you said you were going to go to the church and look around? All right. So you head to the church. The church, as the evening comes on, is the main areas of it are fairly well lit because the sun goes down in the west, of course, and the west is now the front end. Well, what you would consider the front end of the church. It's all lit up. All that gold is beautiful and shiny in the sunlight. The main body of the church is fairly well lit. There are candles, of course, and I'm not sure they have electricity, at least not then. But these little side chapels are tiny, and they're usually only lit by a few candles that people have placed in there. But based on the map that Theodore found, you walk over towards the chapel, and it's just a little archway leading off of the side area, and then it makes a sharp east turn. And the room is small, rectangular, maybe about 40 feet long going forward, but only maybe about 15 feet wide. It has a not domed, but an arched ceiling going all the way with icons all over it. I'll show you a picture. But why don't you do spot hidden for me? See if I'm into it.
$30 is a hard success.
Okay. Well, those of you who pass, I can just do it that way. Those of you who pass, look up at one of the icons on the side, and it shows poor Saint Isidore being dragged by his legs as his skin is being ripped off of his body.
No, that has some disturbing thematic resonance.
The
legs, losing one's skin.
The little altar on it's maybe 10 feet wide and 2 feet thick, but there is a large sarcophagus-like structure on the top of that. It looks like it's behind the cross and behind those things. It looks like it's made out of marble. That is the reliquary. There's actually a statue of the saint on top of it. Looks like it'll be heavy. But obviously, if the one policeman could manage to get it open,
right?
Maybe he opened it and pushed the thing in and then closed it. There are still people in the church walking about, so.
We shall have to plan a bit. Interesting also that immediately when this Captain Dubois tucked the piece into this reliquary, there were such recoveries. So we have some idea of containment for the individual pieces, but we obviously can't go on to Constantinople with a number of giant marble cases. Each artifact has had a dangerous effect on those local to it, but very different ones. The spots on the arms were very unlike the lung sicknesses in the opera, which is different from the giant rash of leg deformities hundreds of years ago.
Dorian and Gunter, when he's talking about the leg and the arm, the chest and the arm, your chest hurts, your arm hurts.
Ugh, yes.
So what do you want to do? Do you want to make some plans?
Yes.
Is there a window in this chapel?
There is not.
There is not. So I think what we could do, if one or two of us wait here until everybody leaves for the night at the chapel, and then we take the leg and go. I'm struggling to think of a better plan than that.
I'm just curious if we are currently in a position to secrete it on our persons without causing a disturbance. If anything were noticed, I think the black shirts would be here in a very short time and make it rough for us. So maybe we come back with a prepared coat or some other vessel for transporting. We can estimate the size pretty closely.
I could also, my family, as the Thursby Philanthropic Organization, I could maybe go to a senior member here at this church and mention maybe a sizable donation for the upkeep of this place.
I would be hesitant to do that just because that associates your name. And if things go, the hope is nobody knows that the leg was even here to begin with.
Well, the thing is that what they
attention to ourselves is
exactly. But this would be my idea, not to be the one taking it, but to be one nearby. And if anyone is about to discover you, I could then come out and say, "Oh, I'm Thurston Thursby here to discuss this." To discuss this matter. I mentioned earlier in the day that I'd come by later in the evening. So I could do that now and then use that as a very good distraction, because if say I was going to offer 10,000 lira or 50,000 lira, that might really catch their attention. They wouldn't want to disregard such an offer, but I wouldn't be directly involved in taking it.
But then, I mean, that's...
Let me give you a little bit of fuel on that. Is it's not likely, Naruto would know this, it's not likely that they lock up the church. It's likely that there are people here at all hours of the night. People come here to pray. People do all that. Getting into the church and out of the church might not be that difficult. And it's not just the one door. There's other ways in and out of the church.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to have like a little backup cover.
You'd need some planning.
See, the complication is that the object we want to remove is large, but the other side of it is that it is nothing like a bone of a saint from 1,000 years ago. Okay. It is a weird art object. It's just what would we carry it around with us?
It is winter and you'll have long coats. So
winter, there's long coats. Somebody could pose as a lost tourist at night, wandering around the cathedral grounds. We pop out a side door with the leg. We pop it into a trunk. Go to the hotel.
I don't even think we need a trunk. We need a loose coat, a little organization, and maybe 3 parties in Isidore's little chapelette to make sure that they are alone, and 2 lift up the marble, and 1 tucks the leg under the elbow.
So we have one person wait outside the cathedral, 1 person wait outside the chapel, 2 people to move the lid, take the leg, replace the lid, and then
off we go.
And we have still nothing from the church. Even if they stopped us at the door, we would say, I brought in this strange leg. Because my uncle
want to stop us. Who would stop us at the door?
No, I don't think anybody would. But even if they had, again, we are not stealing our relic. We're stealing this thing that we assume do not know is there. If it is still there.
And people are not. Anyway.
Excellent. Maybe Gunther, maybe you might be part of the team that's actually taking it, since you.
I would think so. I'm best at kind of making
all right,
things.
So the people could also enter separately. So like 1 person will go in, 15 minutes later, another person will go in.
Are you all planning this inside of?
No.
No, we've gone out. Yeah,
you've left.
Yeah.
Okay. You're planning all this back in your.
Yeah.
Yes.
Room.
In Italian, loudly in front of the black shirts.
Right. You're probably having dinner as well, making your plans. Dr. Kurz, as you are sitting there discussing this quietly, and you look over at a newspaper, there's a name in the newspaper that suddenly catches your attention. You pick up the newspaper and you begin to read it, and the rest of you notice a large smile coming across Dr. Kurz's face, and then he reads it to you.
Death of an alms dealer. Dazzling bequest to charity, puzzling last words of millionaire. It is this paper's sad duty to report that the millionaire, Mr. Ivan M. Karakov, died in his Monte Carlo villa the day before yesterday. Doctors said that his heart had been failing for some time and finally gave out. Mr. Karakov made his money in munition sales. He was reputed to secretly control a vast web of subsidiary companies so that many countries, in thinking they were selecting between rivals, were in fact choosing between 2 companies controlled by Mr. Karakov himself. Such was his wealth that he was once reputed to have gained £1 for every soldier killed in the Great War. On his deathbed, Mr. Karakov changed his will, bequeathing his vast estate and the bulk of his financial holdings in excess of £14 million to various charities, including the London Charity Organisation Society and both the British and American Red Cross. When asked why he had changed his mind, The dying man gave a cryptic answer. It was all thanks to my friends on the train. His heirs planned to challenge the new will on the grounds of insanity.
Thank God. I'm glad to see he found peace.
It is good news, and Neruda and I will have to send some dream lawyers over to keep
the will,
keep the heirs
in place. Yes,
really good news.
Our players included Morgan Llewellyn, David Gasaway, Stuart Lively, Keith Craig, and Josh Harwood, with yours truly as the Keeper of the Secrets. We have a Discord server where you can chat with our other members, you can set up private games, and you can learn the finer arts of gameplay and game mastering. We provide audio-only versions of our shows free for you to download from Podbean or iTunes. If you'd like to help support our show, please visit our Patreon account. Just $1 or $2 a month helps us a lot. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and punch the bell icon for updates on our latest shows. And leave us some comments. We enjoy reading them and answering any questions you might have. This is Tom Rayleigh, together with all the members of our gaming club, inviting you to journey with us once again into the darkness for another adventure into the universe of H.P. Lovecraft and the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. Until next time, good luck and good gaming.